Hey guys, it's Judy from Nutrition with Judy. Thanks for joining me today. While you're here, please make sure to like and subscribe. My name is Judy Cho, and I'm board certified in holistic nutrition. And I have a private practice where we focus on root cause healing, and it often starts with the Carnivore Cures all meat elimination diet. Today, I had the pleasure of sitting down with some of my team members. You have met Caitlin and Cheryl on different interviews, and what we do today and what we're going to start doing is having just bite-sized pieces of content about a certain specific topic that affects carnivores or maybe the SIRS community. And we just get into the details about that specific topic. This first topic is about one meal a day, or OMAD. I know there are many carnivore advocates that love eating OMAD, and we talk about the pros and cons, or mostly cons, of why we're not big fans of OMAD. We are trying to have this as real talk where it's just our thoughts, unscripted, unplanned, of like the different things that we want to talk about. Now, there's going to always be a little bit of education, nutritional therapy in what we share, but it's also just the real life aspects of what we see in our practice about OMAD or how it affects our clientele. Always do what works for you, but we know that internally we see so many clinical pearls, and we are going to try to share these pearls with you. Okay, guys, let's get right into the episode. Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Caitlin.
Hey.
I'm excited for this very first episode. I think that we will have many of these episodes where we just talk about certain topics and just have our chit chat that we normally have offline. And we'll just bring some advice and fun to the community at large. So maybe if we could just go into the first topic, it's about one meal a day, or OMAD. We all behind the scenes or with our clientele, we get a lot of discussion about OMAD. And I figured that, maybe we can just talk about what our thoughts are on OMAD. I'm not really a big fan of it. My experience has been my very first year of carnivore, I was doing OMAD. I just felt that it wasn't right over time. I didn't know how to go to a dinner later if I had my 3 o'clock one meal a day. And then it's like, how do I function at dinner? And I started noticing it was an issue, and I was getting anxiety from it. So maybe Caitlin, if you can start and just share like one reason you may not like OMAD. And you can also talk about the things that you do like about OMAD if you do.
Right. So I never personally tried OMAD. I never thought it would work for me or fit around my goals or what I wanted to do. And then when I started seeing client after client who was coming with OMAD, a lot of them were also having digestive issues. So then that didn't go hand in hand either. So if they weren't already digesting their one meal, that was going to be an issue later on. Like, how could they be nourished enough if they can't break down all their food at one time?
Yeah, so I think one of my big things about why I'm not the biggest fan of OMAD, and I know Cheryl, you know this so well with even like the supplementation, but it's such a big, hard stressor on your digestion and digestive process. We all know that our guts aren't the best. And if we are not having enough hydrochloric acid or stomach acid to break down our nutrients, we get one time, one chance to get all the nutrients we can get and absorb in one go. And most people are probably becoming depleted in that way.
Yeah, I think you touched on a couple things already that crossed my mind. And a lot of it is social. Food is a social thing. And we have a lot of people already extremely concerned with the socialization of carnivore. Now, I think actually, especially in the summer, meat is usually everywhere you go in the summer, right? It's a good barbecue. It's a good barbecue diet. However, you touched on it where it's like, if you already ate your meal, or if you're going to a lunch and your meal is not till 6 o'clock at night, do you just never eat there? So there's a couple social pieces that come along with it for sure. And then I think you said you hit the nail on the head when you talked about, can we digest all that meat at once? Can we digest all that fat at once? And I would say 99% of the people walking around can't. It's just not going to happen.
So I'm going to just play devil's advocate in this episode. So a lot of people will say, well, I don't have any digestion issues. And when I eat that way, I feel fine after and I feel totally good.
So I think that's an interesting one. I don't have any digestive issues because working in this space for some time now, I'm amazed. I continue to be amazed, I should say, by what people normalize. So I don't have digestive issues. I'm just gassy all the time. You're just gassy all the time, but you don't have digestive issues. Or I'm always bloated. like I always have a food baby, but I don't have any digestive issues. That's just me. So I think that saying that people don't have any digestive issues, I would say in some way, shape, or form, almost every client that comes to us, and even things I see outside of this practice, almost everybody has something going on with digestion or something going on with their gut that they would love to improve. And there's very few people that eating one meal a day is going to improve that.
I think that a lot of carnivores noticeably notice that when they eat meat, they have less gas. So I can see someone saying, no, on carnivore, one meal a day, I don't have gas. So Caitlin, what would you say to that?
I would say if you truly don't have digestive issues, then what's your why? Why are you only having one meal a day? Do you lose your ability to stop eating once you start eating? So you're only good for one meal a day and then eating other times, you're fearful of? Are you only eating one meal at the same time every single day? Like, do you think that's practical? Like, what if you miss your meal window? Do you then eat later in the day, or will you ever eat earlier if that's your opportunity to? Or you're like, oh, I'll hold off till 4 because if I eat at 10, then I'll be hungry later in the day. But what if, that 4 o'clock comes and you're out the door, something happens, and then, you're not eating for the whole day. So is it working for you? Why are you doing it? Are you afraid to eat again later in the day or something along those lines? So you really have to have, I'm not saying OMAD doesn't work for anybody, but you really have to have a strong why. Is it really working for you? And are you actually breaking down all that food?
Yeah, I know for me, when I did the one meal a day, just to be wholly honest, it's because I felt like I had the luxury now of, oh my gosh, I found a diet that I could completely binge. It's fully okay. And then I don't have to work on healing from my eating disorder. Now, I wouldn't need to purge anymore because I knew that this diet was the right way to eat. And I can eat way more than I normally would. And although my stomach is like bursting with just the fullness, but I know that it's okay. The problem became when I would have to have social events or I needed to go to dinner. And that's when I'm like, I don't know how to stop eating. So then if I did have a second meal, it would again almost be gorging. And that's when I realized this isn't healthy. Like it can't be healthy. So I would challenge the people that are listening and watching this. If you are doing OMAD, like why are you doing it? Let's say, all cards are on the table. If it's just that you enjoy it, like why do you enjoy it when the average person maybe eats 2 or 3 meals a day? Even in low carb space, they eat 2 meals a day. So is it anything other than your enjoyment? And then if it is just the enjoyment, would you then not have an issue just splitting up your meals into 2? And if you do have an issue, then my question would be why? Like, why is it difficult to split it into 2?
I think too, another thing that comes to my mind is the ancestral piece of it, right? And I don't mean to sound totally, like totally trendy when I say that, but I think that when you talk a meat-based diet, ancestral comes to mind. You're kind of mimicking the way we've thrived since civilization began. And I think we're in a really different place now when you talk about, famine, feast, feast, famine, whichever order you want to say it in. And when that used to be the way ancestors did things, where they would go, 24 hours without anything, and then they would, kill big game, and they would all split it and have a big feast, and then they would go and hunt again, or, go about their business for 24 hours before they ate again. I think that there was a lot less stressors on the body then, in general. I think that, just the obvious, right? Like, you weren't in a rush as much when you ate. It was a lot more of a ceremonious thing where everyone sat down and relaxed and really chewed their food. And nobody was thinking about the 9 million other things they had to do. There was no TVs on. And I think that the digestive process in general was way more efficient then. There's a lot more we're up against now. We're talking Wi-Fi. We're talking, like I said, electronics. We're talking people eating right in front of work. A lot of people work from home now. I mean, I feel like the list could go on. And we're going to talk about getting all of our nutrients in one meal, dealing with all those stressors at the same time. And we're talking about absorbing, assimilating, all of it, all at the same time. I don't see it to be efficient.
I always feel that the ancestral argument is so odd for the obvious reasons you just brought up. But I think of I'm sure that our ancestral, our way of eating or lifestyle, think about our nails. We cut our nails, right? I just don't think they cut their nails. I always think of that whenever I cut my kids' nails. Like that is not ancestral. We do so many things that are not ancestral.
Right.
Watching even this clip or something, but and then we use it when we want, but there are so many things like the nail clipping stuff is an example. There's so many nuances
Right.
like that aren't ancestrally consistent, but we think it's normal, like the flossing, brushing teeth. I know some people in our community don't really brush their teeth, but you know, there's so many things that yes, it's not ancestrally consistent, but I think this new way is probably better.
The fact that we can Google ancestral, that's how not ancestral we are.
Right. So if they live in the woods, they can eat one meal a day. That's the deal. But they no tent, no nothing. You can eat one meal a day.
I also think that if we went back in the day, I don't think they wanted to just eat one meal a day.
No.
They wouldn't pass up
Right.
if another animal walked in front of them because they already ate. They would not pass up
Right.
that opportunity.
And
So did they eat OMAD every day?
Yeah.
No.
There was also the preservation issue. They had nowhere to store things to save it for later, right? Like the meat would spoil, or you know, they had to kind of eat it all, go catch more and eat it all. You know, like that.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, that was it, I think.
No, so the other right, but no, and they didn't really have salt. The other ancestral thing I always think about is when people are like, I only eat beef. So then when they're only eating steak, like that's not ancestrally consistent either. Or when we're doing elimination diets and we're just eating chicken, or we're just eating pork, or we're having, or when people say, fine, I'm eating nose to tail, but then they're only eating a certain animal, that's probably not ancestrally consistent. So it's just, I think that whole, I get the logic behind why we say that. So like, let's go back to our natural selves, but it's when they use that for OMAD, I just think it doesn't really make sense.
And that's the issue too. Usually when people are eating OMAD, at least what I see on paper is that they're only eating one thing, or like one piece of meat, like maybe something else on the side, but likely not. So then you're only eating likely beef.
Yeah, so I think what we have said is OMAD is not ideal because regardless of the ancestrally consistent, we'll just say that's an opinion. But the digestive part, it makes it really hard. I think there's a certain amount your body can process at one point in terms of caloric. And so if you think about if you're eating 2,000 calories in one sitting, that's such a burden on the gut, making sure you have enough hydrochloric acid to then break down, get the nutrients absorbed in the small intestine. So the digestion becomes impaired. If you've ever had digestive issues, it's even a bigger reason not to do OMAD. And then we kind of talked about the food addiction part, right? So if you are scared to move away from OMAD because OMAD allows you to think, this is my time to binge, and then all the other times is times to restrict, that is not food freedom. And I know that coming from an eating disorder place, I can now eat 2 meals a day, 3 meals a day, 1 meal a day. I could have a snack, and it does not trigger me to go, oh no, I need to eat more. Now my window is like, I don't think that way. And so I just think if we are all honest with ourselves, we have to think, why are we sticking to OMAD? And if it's very rigid, even more so, is it a food addiction that you're not fully healing? And that's something really critical to consider. I think the other big piece is the protein needs. So I interviewed with Dr. Donald Lehman several times. I have another podcast coming up with him. He always talks about amino acid needs. We don't have a protein need, we have an amino acid need. So all the 9 essential amino acids. And he says that we can absorb or utilize the most efficient about 40 grams of protein per meal. So anything beyond that, we will still absorb it, but it may just make our liver bigger, our kidneys bigger, but it's not really utilizing and supporting our muscle mass. So there is some truth where bodybuilders, and Caitlin, you could speak to this, but the people that lift a lot and get big muscles, there is truth to why they eat protein so frequently. And it's because you want to be in a state of building and not breaking down. And when you have only 1 meal a day, especially as you get older and bone mass and muscle mass start declining as it is because our digestion becomes more impaired, you're risking your bone and muscle mass, especially as you get beyond the age of 40. So I think it's smarter to at least have 2 meals a day to make sure that you're also synthesizing amino acids, which are the building blocks of everything in our body, and making sure we're maintaining our muscle mass, which is the key to longevity for long term.
Yeah, and I just think it's way too hard to get 1 meal a day and then know that you're eating enough protein, because it's hard to break down all that protein and then the fat on top of it as well. So like I said, I never found a way to just eat one meal a day that supported my activity level or things I wanted to do that day.
Yeah, I think activity level is a big part of it too, because if you're coming from a social standpoint, you're like, well, I want to make sure I have dinner with my family every night. So if you make that your one meal a day, but like your schedule only fits for you to work out in the morning, I mean, you're already working out on a fasted state, and you could be talking about working out and not eating again for another, what, 8 to 10 hours. That's a rough go for your body for the long haul.
So I'm gonna flip the script because I don't want to be super biased. Like, okay, so we all don't like OMAD. There are people in the carnivore community that actually recommend and say it is super beneficial to be OMAD, and I don't agree with that at all. And I'm happy to go head to head on that. But assuming that there are benefits, let's talk about some of the benefits of doing OMAD, or if you guys can think of anything. I'll go first, but I know that if you are diabetic and you're starting this way, maybe it's a decent band-aid to start reducing insulin faster, assuming that you can even do that with your blood sugar dysregulation. But for some people, they find their blood sugar improves faster by doing that intermittent fasting in a sense, and then having their insulin not as resistant a little bit faster than if they were eating multiple meals a day. But I still think it's temporary.
They would also have to monitor very closely what their blood sugar is going to after a meal that big.
Oh, true. But if they're eating mostly meat,
hopefully it wouldn't go up.
Right. I mean, it will still go up. I know when I was doing OMAD, my blood sugar would go up a lot. So if I'm normally in the 90s, it was going up to even 160. So I don't know. I never thought about, maybe I was eating too much protein in one sitting, and it was just a burden on my body. And I did have digestive issues before. So
I was gonna say, I know you don't take many digestive supports now, maybe just as needed here and there, but when you were OMAD, did you need them?
So I went to NTA, and I think I was more keto. I did use digestive supports. I didn't use it then. I don't think I did.
I feel like I would need a bottle of everything if I ate one meal. All of it. Give me everything on the menu. I need a full bottle. I need to break down 2,000 calories right now. Yeah, that would be rugged for me.
Yeah,
this is supposed to be the benefit of OMAD, Cheryl. You failed.
Sorry, I got sidetracked again. I feel like it could be beneficial, provided you can digest it and it doesn't make you feel lousy, right? Because that's where we are right now. That's the mental space we're in. I feel like it could be beneficial for some people's jobs, depending on if they have a high-paced, busy job and they don't get a break. That could be really convenient. Like, I go to work all day and I don't have to pack a thing, just cook when I get home. That would be desirable, though. Now that I think of it, all those years I had to pack my lunch, like working in healthcare, just walk out of the house.
Yeah. So to continue what you were saying, was it you, Caitlin? I think it was you during the meeting. We met with one person that they work such a busy job that it was really easy for them to do that one meal a day, but their markers showed that they had nutrient deficiencies and other gut issues, but it was the easiest for him to do one meal a day based on, I think he was working like 12, 14-hour shifts. So I get it from that convenience factor. I tell Kevin all the time as a joke, like, oh, I wish I had an IV where I could just drip all the nutrients in me. But I know they have things like that, but that's not what I'm talking about. But yeah, so I get it, but it's not ideal for the long term. Okay, I know this is the positive side, but
so it's easy. That's probably the biggest benefit of OMAD. It's easy. So whether or not you have digestive issues, whether or not it will spike your insulin, whether or not it is okay long term, it's easy. It is very easy to do. If you are someone who needs to track right now, wants to track right now, it's like, I don't have to go back in and like track my food. I eat the same thing, the same time. It takes the thinking out of it. Your brain has so much to do all day long. The last thing it wants to do is be like, what do I want for dinner? Like, what do I want for lunch? What do I want for breakfast? I eat once a day. That is like 2 other decisions I don't have to make anymore. And those are hard decisions at the end of the day. So it's like, if I don't have to think about the food, it's like I can consider other things. So it's very easy is usually what I get from a lot of people. And then it's also some level of fasting. So would it have some weight loss benefits initially? probably for some people, maybe not for others, depends on your metabolic health. So I'm sure some people would see a benefit with weight loss if they were metabolically healthy before starting. And assuming they're still not eating too much at one time. You could still eat too much.
The
in
other
one
benefit
sitting.
I've heard from people is the cleanup. So there's less cleanup, less oil messes in the kitchen. But I'm sorry, I can't help but I have to bring up a study. So Peter Attia just recently brought up a study where all intermittent fasting does not really do much benefit other than the caloric intake is the difference. So you may lose weight on a intermittent fast, but it's really just, now I know it could support your insulin levels. I do agree with that because it, like, the less need of insulin or blood sugar imbalance when you're eating, then less insulin will be outputted. But generally speaking, he said the difference really is the caloric. That's the difference. It's not like you cannot trigger autophagy in that short period. I'm assuming he's thinking that you're eating carbs too, which would even trigger autophagy less. But yeah, I can't help but bring that up as a weight loss thing. So it depends on if you're eating one meal a day and you undereat, then yeah, you'll lose weight, but you will pay for it in the long run.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I do see is that people undereat on OMAD. I think we see that a lot in our practice.
I was thinking about the undereating thing, and you mentioned something before, and we kind of glazed over. So now I'm going negative again, though.
No, that's okay.
It's too late.
Warning, it's about to happen. So you mentioned nutrient deficiencies, and from a very scientific lab report standpoint, anytime you're looking at any kind of lab result and it's indicating nutrient deficiencies, that's what will be computer generated, that you should eat smaller meals and eat them more frequently. So that is telling us right there that if there's nutrient deficiencies, it doesn't always mean you're not taking it in. It might mean you're taking it in all too much at once, and it's just too much of a bombardment on the body. So it's like, if you took your 2,000 calories and stretched them out just into 3 meals, or even try 2, it gives your body so much more time to do it.
Yeah, and we see that with the people that are trying to eat higher fat, but they say, I can't do high fat because if I do high fat, I have the runs or my gut doesn't tolerate it. So then we're like, try 3 meals, try 5 meals. And yes, I know it gets tricky with the insulin resistance, but if you were insulin resistant on a higher carb diet, then just eating no carbs will still be a benefit, even if you're eating 5 small meals. But I just think that it's just less stress. I mean, just think about it. If you open a door and then like so many people run in at once versus like one person or like 3 people running in out, it's just logically your stomach has to handle so much. It has to sift through digestion. It has to sift through the release of hydrochloric acid and then other digestive enzymes. And then on top of that, it has to have the immune system come in and sift through like what is a toxin, what's a bacteria, what's something that we need to kill off. And eventually conveyor belts, when they go so quickly, people miss things. And it's inevitable that when you're eating such a large meal at once, that you will miss something. And then on top of that, you will probably get nutrient depleted. And that's my bigger concern.
Yeah, the stress piece of it, right? I mean, it will come up on weekly calls. We'll be fascinated when someone's stress level is low that comes to us, right? We're like, whoa, this person has a low stress level. We almost never see it.
Right.
So if everybody's stress level tends to be high, who's even remotely struggling with their health, adding the stress of having to digest everything in one meal, generally not practical.
And bringing it back to what you said before, hardly anyone is sitting down and eating for long periods of time. Like they're eating at their desk, they're eating in the car, they're eating in 5 minutes. Like that is a stressor.
The car is my favorite. When I look next to work and I'm like, ooh, where did that person stop? Yep, the car is a big thing.
So if I'm a busy person and I can't cook up meals all the time, and I'm like, fine, I concede maybe 2 meals a day at least is better than 1. Tell me how, as a busy person that I work a 14-hour job or I don't like cooking a lot, tell me how I can add another meal and make my life still consistent or easy.
What about the good old rule of thumb, cook once, eat twice? You know, you cook it for dinner one night, it becomes lunch the next day too. That could become like a regular, if lunch and dinner is the breakdown you do. Because that's generally, I feel like, what we see. We're not really seeing breakfast dinner splits. We're seeing, the skip breakfast, eat lunch, dinner. So you could cook dinner at night, cook double, it becomes lunch the next day.
That's what we do. Our house, we cook a lot at dinner, and then lunch is leftovers, and then dinner is where we cook. So yeah, I agree.
So practical.
I think the other option is if you're truly working. So a lot of the people that do those shifts, the big chunks of 12 to 14 hours, they're not working every single day. So then it's like, maybe it's not perfect, but maybe on the 12, 14-hour shifts, I've asked people to like carry hard-boiled eggs because it's easier. But even if that's tough, maybe they do a protein shake for one of their meals. So at least they separate some of the protein. I know it's not super, super ideal, but if that's only 3 days a week, then the other 4 days, then maybe they have the 2 meals, but maybe they do enough protein. So maybe they have a meat stick and like a protein shake, which is probably like 35, 40 grams of protein. And then they have their full meal, but at least that diversifies a little bit of the nutrition and the protein grams. Okay, I think we've said our stances on OMAD. I know that this is a big question I get consistently of like, why am I not for OMAD? People love doing OMAD. And so I think if you are doing OMAD now, maybe you slowly try to see if you can add one other meal. So don't just switch your meals all of a sudden and make it really hard on yourself. Just find that balance of how you can try to incorporate one other meal. And maybe you start with the big meal and a small snack and see if you can even tolerate that mentally. But I do think from a clinical perspective that we are not the biggest fans of OMAD for all the various reasons we just talked about. But I appreciate all of you guys coming and joining me on this call. I know we'll do many of these and we'll hit a lot of topics. What are some of the other topics that we said we would cover?
I know we were definitely thinking about supplements, fasting.
Do you need fiber?
Yeah. We were talking SIBO and SIFO.
Right. And then eliminations, reintroductions, like at what point is it that you're just using carnivore as a band-aid versus really healing, and figuring out when is it appropriate to eliminate and reintroduce, and like what foods are ideal. We get that a lot. So we can get that. Yeah. And then we also get like calorie countings versus tracking versus just trust your body and your body's needs, and then stuff about weight loss. So I know I've changed my thoughts about calorie counting and weight loss over the years. And so I'm happy to share about that. But there is so much information that we talk as a team and then with our clients and patients that we never really make it to social media about it. But I just think this format will be helpful because not everyone can work with us, but you can see our thoughts on specific topics that may help you. Well, thank you both for your time. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you are eating one meal a day, just take a pause and think about the things we've talked about. If you still feel like everything is going well and you feel nutrient sufficient and your digestion is good and you're not using OMAD because of a hidden food addiction or food imbalance, then maybe OMAD is okay for you during this time. Maybe you add a whey protein shake so that you get separate amino acids while you're eating your main OMAD. There are ways to circumvent this, but ideally, I don't think OMAD is ideal. But again, if it's working for you well and nothing is broken, that's when I think you should question what we're even saying. If nothing is broken, you should always go with what is working. If there are topics that you want us to cover, as clinical nutritional therapists, we have so many different perspectives and experiences with all the hundreds and thousands of people we have worked with. So if you have any specific topic you want us to cover, please put it in the show notes and we will consider them for upcoming episodes. I hope you guys enjoyed this layout. It's been really fun getting together as a team and just talking and breaking through different topics and different conditions that we see as a team. And this is how I meet with our team for all the cases that we go through on a weekly basis. And now you get to see a little bit of our dynamic and what we actually discuss in real life and in our clinical practice. Okay, guys, make sure to eat a lot of meat. Take care of your bodies because it is the only place you have to live. I will talk to you later. Bye, guys.